Right, it is 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started with our presentation here today. Really appreciate everyone coming, and I'm really grateful that the zoo is kind enough to let us use this facility from time to time when we have these types of needs. This is a nice place to be. My name is Kent Fugel. I'm the city engineer for Idaho Falls, and doesn't mean I know all that much, but I try to know enough to at least be able to talk to you. But we are kind of excited to come and talk to you tonight about this proposed project at 17th and Rollandet with a secondary component at 19th and Leslie. So we'll just jump into this. What I'd like to do, so first off, this is a map that was on the flyer that was sent to property owners that were close to this. But we're talking about a couple of different things here tonight. So if this isn't what you were thinking we were talking about, you might be in the wrong place. So we've got the intersection of 17th Street and Rollandet. So here's Rollandet, 17th, Pancary, Yellowstone. And then we'll also be talking about the intersection of 19th and Leslie. So that's our topic here tonight. And what I'd like to do is kind of, as we approach this, we're gonna kind of step back a little bit and get into a little bit of the background for this project. I think that might be helpful for everyone. And then we'll kind of move into some of the details. We'll talk about these two locations in some detail. And but where I really want to start, here's really why we're meeting. We want people to know what we're doing, and that's really the main purpose of this, is to be able to share information about this project so people know what we're doing. They're not surprised when something happens when it's time for construction. You're like, what? Why are you doing that? So we want to inform people there. We also recognize that you all may know some things or see some things about the project that you think we should know. The issues that might come up, concerns you may have, that we need to figure out a way to kind of mitigate, right? Whether that be with the design itself or whether you have concerns with what's going to happen during construction, anything like that. So we're certainly open to whatever feedback you may have. And that's why I say on this other bullet here, we want to provide an opportunity for comment. This isn't a formal public hearing or anything like that, but we're always anxious to find out what people think if you have something that you feel like you need to share. So with the presentation here, we're gonna jump back a little bit and talk about a road safety audit that was done on 17th Street. What a road safety audit is it's a comprehensive study of a particular corridor, looking at whatever safety issues might exist in that corridor. These are done by multidisciplinary teams. This particular study had involvement from the police, from some of the other nearby, or it's a couple of county people from nearby jurisdictions, county public works type people. We had involvement from the Bonneville Metropolitan Planning Organization, so more of a planning perspective. We had ITD involved in this. We had even an elected official from one of our Eastern Idaho communities wanted to come be involved in this to learn more about this process and how it might benefit his community. So, and he actually brought some good information to the table for the study. So this is not a study that was done by Idaho Falls Public Works. This was something where we kind of say, here's what we've got, and then we back out of the way and let them do the study and make their recommendations to us. So they looked at traffic volume and crash data. They did a field evaluation in the daytime, again at night, because things look different at night than they do in the daytime. They prepared a final report with some recommended safety improvements. And then it was our responsibility to go through all of the recommendations they had and prepare our responses to it. There were some things that were recommended that we really just can't feasibly do, at least not in any kind of horizon that I can see. Money is always a factor, but sometimes it's just a matter of technical feasibility as well, right? we looked at, but most of the recommendations we were able to say, yeah, we'll implement those. Some of them, it's maybe with a little bit of modification from some of the details they recommended. But and some of them are longer term, some of them were near term. And but this study was completed in 2016, and in the time since then, we've actually implemented a lot of things from this study. And I wanted to list some of these. It kind of gives you a flavor of what some of the recommendations are and what we have been able to do. So we worked to eliminate or combine some of the accesses along 17th Street. As we've had properties come back in for redevelopment, right? They would say, you know what, you've got 5 accesses across this frontage, you don't need 5 accesses. We've worked with them to reduce those down to a reasonable number of accesses. That's a big part of the safety issues we have on 17th Street, is having driveways so closely spaced as we go down the roadway. So we've been able to make some progress on that. There's still a lot to do, but that'll come over time as more and more properties redevelop. We replaced some faded signs. There were some recommendations made at the intersection of 17th Street and 25th East, or Hit Road, that when we did our project there in 2017, we were able to take some of their recommendations and incorporate them into that project design. We've added stop bars on some of the minor street approaches to 17th Street. We had stop signs, but the recommendation was, you know what, it would be more effective if you also had the stop bars on these minor street approaches. So we added those. We updated some of the signage on our signal mast arms. We added retroreflective signal backplates to all of our signals. You've probably seen that, the yellow outline on the, around the signal heads that's reflective. And then that's not all.
Could you define a stop bar, please?
Okay, yeah. So the stop bar is the line that's kind of transverse to you as you pull up to the stop bar, to the stop sign. It's about 2 feet wide, usually covers the entire width of the approaching lanes to an intersection, right? So it really sends kind of the same message that the stop sign sends, but that redundancy is beneficial, especially where you've got people pulling out onto such a busy street. And so that was
is it the white reflected glue down?
Yes. Yeah, sometimes they're just painted with glass beads in the paint. A lot of them are thermoplastic, so yeah, that we actually melt onto the pavement, and those have the beads in them as well to make them retroreflective. That's exactly right. We also made, let's see, we did other things. We upgraded pedestrian ramps at another number of intersections. We had some power poles that were right next to the curb that we were able to relocate. Everyone's probably seen, and some people maybe love, and some people maybe not as much, some of the median curbs we put in near all of our major intersections along 17th Street to eliminate those left turns in and out of driveways that are so close to the signal that they really conflict with the queuing operations of the signal.
Right.
That's the, huh?
Right turn only.
Yeah, so really the driveways that are that close to the signal end up being right in, right out, which is a much safer operation. So that was a recommendation of the study that we've implemented. We removed the traffic signal at June Avenue. That was one of the recommendations, and constructed a new median treatment at June, and we'll talk about that one in just a few minutes. We piped the canal at St. Clair. One of the recommendations that we got was at St. Clair we had pedestrian facilities right next to this open canal, and the recommendation was we need something to make this more safe for pedestrians. And so, if we didn't have a need to pipe that canal, we would have probably put up some railings of some sort. But we actually were able to take care of that problem with piping the canal. Now the problem's gone. There is no safety consideration there. So this is just kind of a sampling. This isn't everything we've done, but this is a big bulk of what we've done so far to implement the recommendations of that study. So what we're talking about here tonight is another step in implementing the recommendations of the study. We applied for and were successful in receiving some safety funds, some federal safety funds, to make an improvement at 19th and Rollandet. So Are there any questions so far on what I've said? Okay. So, the big question then is, what are we going to do at 17th and Rollandet, right? That's the question of the evening. So let me start off by looking at a couple of examples. I mentioned June Avenue a moment ago. We built a median treatment at June Avenue that allows, if we have a vehicle coming westbound on 17th Street, they can still pull in and make the left turn. Eastbound on 17th Street, they can pull in and make the left turn to go over into Home Depot or the funeral home there. But you cannot turn left coming out, and you cannot go straight across. So that's a median treatment that we did there that really helps to improve the safety. That when we get these intersections where we know that we have some safety concerns, you know, the left turns off of the main road onto the side street usually aren't our problem. Sometimes they are, but usually they're not. The problem is, you know, people trying to pull out onto the busy arterial, you know, pulling across one direction of traffic, or if they're trying to go straight, pulling across all 4 lanes of traffic to get to the other side. That's where we have the safety concerns. So this is what was done at June. This is an example of what we're going to be doing at 17th and Rollandet. Another example, and this is one we did a little bit earlier, I think, than the one at June, if I'm remembering correctly. This is by the mall. So Grand Teton Mall sits over here. This white roof you can see here is Target on the east side of 25th East. And once again, we put this island in and with the median curbing that extends both ways from it to make it so that people can make the left turn in. Right here you can see in this photo there happened to be a black pickup making that turn. You know, coming the other way as well. You can make the left turn into that shopping center there, but there's no left turns out, no straight across movements. This is an improvement that when it was made, we were seeing you know, a definite difference in what was going on crash-wise. So you may recall that some years ago, when these islands were still a little more narrow, there were barriers put in, you know, the concrete barriers that would kind of channel you over to one side, and there were signs that said you can only turn right. The problem we had with that was poor compliance, right? But even with the poor compliance, that was a significant safety improvement. We saw a drop in crashes there. But this kind of a treatment just makes that even more safe. And so that's what was done here, and that's really what we're looking at the intersection of 17th Street and Rollandet. Now, one of the challenges we have at 17th and Rollandet is we don't have an existing median to work with, like we had here at this location and at the one we looked at previously at 17th and June, right? So we have to approach this one a little bit differently. So here's the intersection of 17th and Rollandet. You can see in the photo, hopefully you can see it from where you're sitting, the existing curb line, the existing sidewalk. The blue lines here are the new curb and gutter that we're proposing to put in. And then you can see kind of in the red lines here, you can see the back of walk, and then that magenta line is the proposed right-of-way line. We have not yet purchased that right-of-way. We're in the process of trying to get there, but that's right. We would be purchasing right-of-way back to that point so that we can move that curb line and sidewalk back. What that does is allows us to take these westbound lanes on 17th Street and shift them to the north, and then shift them back. So we've got a similar improvement on the corner by Sandwich Tree here on the northwest corner of the intersection, where we would be moving that curb line back, and all of that new curb work and purchasing the right-of-way from the affected property owners there allows us to create this open space in the middle where the left turn lanes could be. We think that in and of itself, adding the left turn lanes is a significant safety improvement. You've probably all experienced that, driving there, one car stopping to want to make a left turn, with the busy traffic, hard time finding a gap. You know, that's a safety concern. Did I see a comment over here? Ann? No?
So what you gonna do to Curtis?
What are we gonna do to Curtis?
I mean, people are gonna funnel up there
Yeah.
and turn.
Yep.
You know, and really, when it's a busy time of day, people do that to some extent now, right? Because it's so hard to make the left turns at this location when the traffic is busy, backs up from the signal past the intersection. But no, the scope of this project does not include improvements at Curtis. However, the study, once again, going back to the road safety audit, did look at those other intersections in there, did present some ideas, some options for us to try to work into our long-term planning to try to make that entire corridor between Yellowstone and Boulevard safer than it is now. This is really our first step. We've got to start somewhere, but we're not going to get the funds to fix everything all at once. And this was what was identified as the biggest problem location where we had the potential to make the biggest difference by trying to implement a project. So this is where we're starting. This isn't the end of improvements in the area. We know there's more that will be needed. At this point, we just don't have concrete plans with an identified funding source to make some of the other improvements. But that'll come. We'll keep working on it. We'll make additional progress in the corridor as we move on down the road. Another change that we're seeing here, there's an island coming from the bridge abutment. There's an island that comes out to this point right there. If I could hold my hand a little more still, you'd be able to see better. We're going to cut that island back to make it easier to get into this left turn lane and increase our left turn storage right here. Right now, when a car comes up and tries to just sneak around the end of that island and stop there to wait for a gap in traffic, it's not very effective. There's just not much space there. And by shifting the lane over, we're creating the space, horizontally, transverse there, right? But then we also need a longer space on the roadway for those vehicles to queue up while they're waiting for gaps to make their left turn. So that's another part of the improvements at this intersection that we're proposing. Now, we're not proposing to completely rebuild everything in this intersection. We did a nice mill and overlay job on this roadway not too many years ago. Pavement's in pretty good shape. There's not a reason for us to go in and just tear everything up and rebuild it. So what we're going to do is just widen the pavement on the north side, put in that new curb and widen the pavement on the new side, stripe those lanes over, get our median treatment in. Yes, question?
Yeah. Why not just get rid of the left turn lane and close it off, and you wouldn't have to do any of the concrete work or anything?
Yeah, and that is certainly one of the things that could be done. We felt like for the businesses in this area that the ability of people to get off of 17th Street and make it to their businesses really was and that's of high enough importance. We thought it made more sense to provide that left turn opportunity than to just close it off.
The businesses that are really going to be affected are closing the left turn to go north. Those are the guys that use that area.
Yeah, well, we have the same condition though. Someone can come from the signal underneath the railroad underpass and turn left to these other businesses, right?
And you're not losing any property like I am.
Now say that again.
And you're not losing any property or parking like I'm going to.
So are you at Sandwich Street? Okay. Yeah. And so, we've tried to minimize the footprint of what we're doing, to not have a need to purchase more property than is necessary. But and we probably need to have more discussions about are there other changes that could be made that would help mitigate this that might actually make your parking in this area more effective? I mean, we can talk about that. So. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it looks like from what you got laid out there, are you gonna be eliminating left turns off of Rollandet going west on the 17th? They're gonna be eliminated totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. The left turns from Rollandet to Sunnyside would be eliminated completely.
do
Same thing with the southbound Rollandet to eastbound, not Sunnyside. Why do I keep saying Sunnyside?
I don't know.
I just got it on my brain today for some reason, maybe because of our big sewer project that's going on out there. Yeah, to turn on to 17th Street, you will not be able to make that left turn. Yes, sir.
Hey, I've heard a lot of comment about vehicle traffic.
Mhm.
You've got a lot of kids over there that go to Hawthorne Elementary School. So with you putting in this island and making left turns, you're basically taking out any kind of a traffic break that those kids have to get across 17th Street. So farther up and down that street, like Curtis and Fife, has anybody ever thought about maybe putting in walk bridges for those kids to get over?
You know, at this point, we haven't really considered that grade separated pedestrian crossing. Obviously, that's a very expensive proposition and takes a lot of space, a lot of right-of-way to build those structures.
Not really, you already own the sidewalks.
Yeah, but the
Just
structures,
build the bridges onto the sidewalks.
the bridges are a much bigger footprint than that. To meet ADA, as you have to switch back the ramps coming down, they end up being pretty big. We would most likely lose a couple of houses, in my opinion, to try to get a pedestrian structure over top of the roadway by the time we meet ADA.
So what about a
requirements.
crosswalk for those kids?
Yeah, what
Yeah.
about something like that line at A and Yellowstone?
Yeah, so, you know, we will certainly, as we can continue in our quest to make this corridor safer, we will be looking at, are there places where we can strategically put in some pedestrian crossings? You know, it's, and that's something that we're just not there yet. You know, we're trying to take this one step at a time and make the improvements we can make. We're not there yet to be looking at our, you know, additional projects, additional funds that are needed to do other improvements. We'll keep working on that though. We certainly want to continue to make improvements. Yes, sir.
So since you affect 3 property owners, is what it appears, maybe 4, where is your printed traffic study and what is the radius impact and what's the mitigation plan? You haven't supplied that to me and I am a property owner.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure that I know what you're.
Well, you have a traffic
asking
study,
for.
whenever you make a change, there is this traffic study and it tells you what the impact is.
Yeah.
And then you have a traffic study with a radius, it might be 2 miles, it might be a mile. So what is the effect at Sunnyside? That would be 1 mile. What is the effect, obviously, at Yellowstone? That's 200 yards. What is the effect at Boulevard? That is a mile, or 7/8 of a mile.
Mhm.
And what is the effect north at Batyama, Cliff Street?
Yeah.
So you didn't do it, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying is we did with the road safety audit.
Okay, so
We-
why didn't you, it's printed, correct?
Yes.
So why didn't the landowners get one? Nobody said a word about that.
When the road safety audit was done, we had our public outreach and announcements on the city website, a number of things that said that was there and available on the city website for people to download. I'm not sure if it's still there right now, but it will be certainly, along with the other materials that we're posting from tonight's meeting.
So,
But yeah, there is the road safety audit. What is typically looked at in the road safety audit is they go through and they look at all of the locations along the corridor, try to identify the safety
no, I
weaknesses.
understand what
But
it
then
is.
what we
It's
actually had them
distances.
do on this,
I understand its
Yeah.
distances and everything.
Yeah,
I'm just
so-
saying, where is it? Because
yeah,
I'm not going to Idaho Falls deal on something you were working on 2 years ago. There would be no reason for me as a
Yeah.
landowner to do that. But it would have been prudent for you to send it to those 3 property owners, or 5 property owners, or 8 property owners, whoever is
yeah.
impacted, and what mitigation you're going to do to take care of those property owners. For example, ideally, we'd like to do this in February, but obviously, well, you said you're not gonna do anything with the street, but you can pour concrete in February.
Yeah, the construction timing on this will be driven by the contracting process through ITD. We don't have complete control over that. And we'll talk a little bit more about the timing later in the presentation. But really, what I wanted to say about the road safety audit, beyond the typical elements of the road safety audit, we had our consultant who was leading the audit team do some additional work looking at this stretch of 17th Street between Yellowstone and Boulevard, where we don't have the left turn bay, which is why we have more unique challenges in this area. We had them look at a number of alternatives of things we might be able to do in this corridor to try to make this better. There were a lot of traffic counts done. They did a lot of traffic analysis that is included in the report. And through all of the work that they did, this came back as really, this was a common point of every option that was looked at, or that was, advanced as they looked at more of the range of options. All of the options they could come up with that looked like viable improvement means for this corridor, this was a common element of it. And so this was a natural for us to go after the federal safety funds and get this done. So they did the traffic analysis, they did all the study that's necessary for us to make that informed decision. And we'll get that out there. There's the road safety audit document itself, and there's a supplementary document called the West End analysis. And West End meaning the west end of the corridor that was studied. The whole overall corridor was from Yellowstone to 25th East. So this west end of the corridor, they prepared a separate document. We'll make sure that both of those are on the website so that we can make those available to you. Any other questions I might be able to answer here? Yes, Jim?
What happens to that yellow, what are the yellow marking mean? Is that gonna be an island or?
Is that a big building right there? What is it?
So the yellow here, those are just the pavement markings.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the beginning of, this is just striping that is signaling the taper, right? We'll have this taper of traffic. And so we've got the dashed line between the two lanes, and then this would be the edge of that median. We can only take it so far because we need to open up that left turn bay.
But it's not an island or anything?
No.
Construction?
No, so it'll be, what we'll probably do that's not shown here is we'll probably actually put some dashed striping across this to help provide more positive guidance for these drivers that they're in that shift, right? But yeah, we do have raised curbs, right here, and then we have the raised island right here. That will look similar, not exactly the same, but similar to those other two examples that I showed.
So will the raised curb be flagged, like up the street?
Will it be what again?
Flagged.
We will
Posts,
have,
whatever you wanna call them.
yeah, we will have markers on those. We really, I mean, it's good for the driver because it gives some target value to them so people don't run into them on accident. But they're also crucial to our snow plowing operation. Otherwise, we'd be running into those every time we've got a major snow event that we're trying to plow.
I'm a little confused on my corner. How close where you're pulling the blue line is it going to be to my roof? Because, I mean, looking
So
at,
here where your building is, the curb is shifting back maybe 2 or 3 feet from
and
where
my
it is
roof
today.
is about 4 from the sidewalk, so.
Yeah.
What's the dash line? Is that the land you're actually looking to purchase?
The dashed line is a temporary construction easement for us to be able to build those improvements. The magenta line is actually the permanent right-of-way line of what we would be purchasing there.
You'd still be able to walk around the front of the building.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Is there a code that says she can't have a roof over the sidewalk? And are you gonna mitigate that with her, take care of it?
We'll take
Yeah.
a look at that. Any other questions here though before I move to 17th, or excuse me, 19th and Leslie? Okay, so let's jump over and look at the intersection of 19th and Leslie Street. Now, or Leslie Avenue, why are we looking at this intersection? Well, you know, 19th Street already serves as kind of an alternate route to people going out to 17th Street and trying to make that dangerous left turn, right? A lot of people use that. I know I personally, whenever I need to drive through there, unless it's at just a really off-peak time where I know there's not much traffic on 17th Street, I'm gonna go down 19th Street to Yellowstone, right? Well, if we're not even allowing the left turns onto 17th Street, then this alternate route on 19th Street becomes more important, because now we may have vehicles that really need to come that way, that don't have much choice. And I think you're probably all familiar with that railroad crossing. It's a little iffy if you have a very long wheelbase, right? You have a long wheelbase and low clearance on your vehicle, there's a good chance you're gonna high center on that thing, right? So we looked at this and we said, okay, if we're gonna make the improvement out at 17th and Rollandet, we need to make this area right here where it can better accommodate the range of vehicles that need to go through there. So we're not really changing the footprint of the roadway right there, but what we are doing that you don't really see in a plan view is we're raising the intersection. Yeah, we're elevating the intersection right here so that it's up at the level of the tracks, and you come across the tracks and dive off. It's still going to be pretty abrupt because there's a lot of elevation drop between the tracks and Yellowstone, right? There's nothing we can do about how many feet of drop there is and how many feet we have from tracks to Yellowstone, right? That's a fixed thing that we're stuck with. But what we can do is raise the pavement up in this area so that it's a less abrupt transition as you go over the railroad tracks, which we think will help a lot of people.
Are you also planning to raise Leslie so that you don't have that big dip that's there right now? You tried turning on to Leslie off of that railroad intersection.
So you're talking in this area?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be looking at that, and we're planning to reconstruct the pavement back into here. We can take a look at that. If we need to go a little bit further to remove what you're talking about, we can look at that. Yeah. So yeah, that's really the proposal here. We're not needing to acquire additional permanent road right-of-way at this location because we're building it in the same footprint. But we will be raising that up. Yes, there will be some grading impact behind that. I mean, this sidewalk right here is going to be higher than it is today, right? That means we'll need to work with this property owner on doing some regrading of that space behind the sidewalk so we can get that tied in nice. Or building some kind of a little wall on the back of the sidewalk. Yes, sir.
How much elevation do you think you're gonna have?
You know what, I don't recall that for sure. I think we've showed that in the plan set there. We can look that up, see if we can get you an answer. So this is kind of that one of the mitigative measures, if you will, to making the change of 17th and Rollandet to not allow those left turns and out from Rollandet, is making some improvement here to make this a more viable alternate route for people. I don't know that it's necessarily going to have that big of an effect on the traffic volumes because so many people are doing it already. But I know that there are people who with what they're driving, that's just not a good option for them. We want to make that to where people can get through.
I hate to go back to the other one, but
Uh-huh.
with this same subject, with 16th Street, there's so much alternate route because people can't turn on 17th going eastbound. All the property owners on 16th with the vehicles, Wheeler Electric, the auto body shops, there's only like one lane. And then add the school and the pedestrians. How much overload's gonna be on that? Have you guys ever even taken an effect of that? I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost equal because of the load. that's gonna have to be detoured, if it's gonna be detoured.
Yeah, and I think really I mean, from the north side, you know, people who might otherwise want to come out to 17th Street on Rollandet and make a left turn, there are other options that are easy to get to, right? When you're coming up from the south, there are fewer that aren't totally out of direction, right? Let me go back to that. So someone who wants to make this left turn, they're obviously going east. Well, they can come around on 16th Street and get to other streets going east, right? When we're looking at this traffic though, someone's wanting to make a left turn is wanting to go west or wanting to get to Yellowstone, Pancari, that area. They need a different route. Going down to Curtis, Fife, Calkins, that's out of direction and they have to come right back, right? And so I think we're talking about a little bit different situation there. But, you know, and I think that's why we weren't seeing the need to do, you know, something, you know, equivalent or comparable to this for traffic coming from the other side. Those routes are already there. Yes, sir.
I think it's a great improvement on 19th. Obviously, we use that every day with heavy equipment. But 19th Street with extra traffic, based off what the parking situation is on 19th now, it's almost a lane and a half by the time it's done.
Just like
So are you
16.
going to address anything on parking on 19th Street?
You know, at this point, it's not our intention to remove any of that parking. You know, on any of our streets, you know, potential need for parking removal is always an issue that's out there, subject to future developments and future study. But we don't have any intention with this project of making any change there.
So I have one other question on it. Back on your other drawing, what do you think of your number of cars you can stage in each one of those turn lanes?
You know what, I don't recall right off. I know that was something that was looked at in the design. But yeah,
The elevation change that's there, it's the elevation that's causing really one of the big issues that I noticed in the area. And you're gonna shift that down to Curtis, and you have another problem with Curtis, that it's almost like this left turn thing is just gonna shove everything down to an area, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
yeah, and we would like to make a future improvement at one of the intersections further east, subject to future study on which one that would be, to provide more of a full access with left turn lanes treatment at one of those other
So
intersections.
is there any long-term plans to look at 17th Street to go east center lane all the way down that whole section?
That is, you know, I mentioned what we were calling the West End Alternatives study that was kind of tacked on to the road safety audit. Yeah, that was one of the things that was looked at, and that is something that's still on the table that we're looking at whether we could make some minor widening of the roadway. It's kind of tough. There are some homes there that aren't that far off the street, right? But some minor widening of the roadway combined with some narrower lanes to try to get a continuous turn lane in. That's certainly one of the options that was advanced in that study that we would look at. Do we do that, or do we just try to make, you know, at one or more of the intersections along there some improvements to get the left turn treatments there, and try to, maybe we just don't have left turns at mid-block locations? I mean, there's various things that could be done that were suggested in that study for further evaluation, and we'll be looking at that. We'd like to come up with a good solution for this. It's kind of interesting that you look at this roadway, and we have an arterial street crammed into the same right-of-way width that we have in our subdivisions, right? So kind of think about that. We've got the same situation on Holmes Avenue, you know, near Idaho Falls High School. A significant arterial street crammed into the same right-of-way width as we have in subdivisions. So we're having to get a little bit creative with this as to what we do, and we think this is a very good first step there's more that's needed, no question about that.
So was there a discussion to rezone all that property? For example, Ammon rezoned from Falcon east to Curlew and changed everything to PPE, so that those homes would eventually go away. We have the same situation here. You fixed it from homes to the mortuary, and it's been fixed on the south side of the road, but not totally on the north side of the road.
Yeah.
So, is that kind of the city's plan?
You know, I can't speak for our Community Development Services Department on what they're looking at with the land use. Certainly that's something that we can discuss with them and see if there are some land use zoning strategies that would help us get where we need to be on this. That's a good suggestion. We can certainly bring that up with them. That's not within our realm in Public Works to
I
make
understand,
those
you're an
kinds
engineer,
of
I
decisions.
do understand.
Yeah, you know, and my wife, you know, has things to say about engineers, and we don't always know the things we think we might know. So, yeah, that will, but no, you bring up a very valid point. As we look at strategies for this corridor, is there something from a land use perspective that could help us achieve our long-term goals? Excellent point. We can talk to planning about that. Okay. Any other questions about what's proposed before I move to my next slide after this?
I was just wondering about a detour. Do we have any idea if we're going to have a lane turning,
Or you
or is that
work
going
out all the
to be,
Curtis.
or
So,
just
are you talking
for
about-
all the Curtis?
Yeah,
Are you talking
Or
about
clear up to Yamaha and around,
talking
to
about
turn into like
construction
Sandwich Street.
detour, or?
Yeah, like are we gonna be completely blocked off for timing? Do we know if we're gonna have a detour yet?
You know, sorry to keep jumping back and forth on the slide, making anybody dizzy yet? But, you know, because our improvements are really just on the corners, I think we'll be able to provide continuous access to Rollandet during the entirety of the construction. What we probably will have to do is close the outside lane of 17th Street while we make some of these improvements.
So you would not be able to turn completely onto Rollandet on the north side?
Oh, I believe we would be able to turn onto it, but we may have to close, so forget about the median improvements for just a moment.
Okay.
And we've got traffic coming down this lane here and this lane here, right? I think we may have to close this lane, but at the intersection, this single westbound lane, we would still be able to provide right turns onto Rollandet.
And equally coming from the other
And
direction?
they truly come from the other direction. Once we get the pavement widening in, and we have somewhere else to put traffic, you know, then we can come in and construct the median. For us to construct the median without this other widening in place, we'd have a really hard time even keeping a lane open.
It would be one, it would maybe be one lane. And
I
it would
think,
shut us
I
down.
think that through most of this construction, there will be a single lane westbound on 17th Street.
And you shouldn't be able to permit left turns at that time, if you have a single lane. Because one
Right,
guy taking
exactly.
the left is gonna back up
You-
all
you're-
the traffic.
You're exactly right. Yeah, that's a very good point. You're exactly right.
That's-
And in reality,
yes,
that
that's-
would back your traffic past,
Yeah.
yeah, the light.
Way up there.
Well, you mean up to Boulevard?
The Boulevard, absolutely, because it
That's
backs,
certainly a possibility.
it backs past Curtis now, and
Yeah.
it's 2 lanes.
I mean, if you've driven on Sunnyside, now I can say Sunnyside, I'm correct in saying. If you've driven on Sunnyside near 25th East recently and seen that eastbound traffic down to 1 lane, it's not real convenient, right? Hopefully, there are a lot of people have figured that out and have found a different way to get where they're gonna go. But yeah, you take an arterial roadway and you take your 2 lanes and reduce it to 1, you're gonna have backups. We know that. We've had that out there on Sunnyside with that sewer lining project, as we've had to close lanes, and we'll have that here. That's just a short-term, a short duration impact that we're gonna have to live with to be able to get the improvements constructed.
But the city could demand in the bid process that work is to be done Saturdays and Sundays, it could be done 7 to midnight.
Absolutely, it'll be detrimental.
We
We'll have
have
to shut
a
down.
city councilman right here that can
100%.
impact this.
Okay?
I mean,
I don't know
seriously,
if we'll be able
yes,
to
you know.
interact.
And so because, for example, when you rebuilt Hit Road out by Smith's, the trailer park,
Mhm.
you killed 2 businesses in there. Rocknex died because you closed the road too long. And you just killed the traffic. And I understand, but you killed Rocknex. We don't want that to happen on these, there's 3 businesses there.
Yeah, and where I think the big difference comes in is where we're only widening the road, not rebuilding the full width. We'll be able to keep most of the traffic going. We'll be able to keep continuous access. Yes, it'll be more congested with traffic in a single lane, but I think that's a short-term impact we can live with. Now, you
So,
do bring up a point about should we restrict what hours they can have a lane closure in place? That's something we can take a look at. As we're working with our consultant and the state in finalizing our specifications for this project, that's something we can take a look at, is to see whether we want to restrict what hours they can do that. Yeah, that's a good point. Any, yes, Jim?
And would the order be that you do the work on Leslie and 19th before you start this? Because you're talking about more traffic on
Yeah.
19th.
But-
That's
but-
certainly right about only a lane and a half with parking. And if you add traffic to 19th, seems like it's too tight. So if you're thinking about fixing something on 19th, does that come first and then this, or?
That's a good point. As we're looking at what restrictions we might place on the contractor as far as how they phase and set up their traffic control, that's something we can take a look at. That's worthwhile. Appreciate that. That's a good suggestion.
Until they can't park there till after 6 p.m.
Would there
Okay.
be any option, like, does anyone, I understand and I respect the 19th, I grew up on 20th, with the overflow there, but we're not talking anywhere north of us, and we are the ones getting bought into with the traffic load that's gonna be on our 16th. Do any of those businesses know?
We sent, the notice that was sent out was mailed to them, yes.
Cause same thing's 19th, I mean, it's probably
Yeah.
near the same.
Yeah.
Notice the business.
Yeah, that was all included in the area that
Okay.
received flyers, yes. So let me move on just a little bit here. Let's talk a little bit about next steps. We do, in the federal aid process, there's a very definite order things need to be done, right? And this meeting tonight is certainly part of that process. But we need to get our right-of-way plans approved by ITD before we can begin any appraisals or negotiations with property owners, okay? So that's kind of where we're at right now. To get those right-of-way plans approved, we do need to get the final environmental approval on the project. There are some steps we need to go through. But that's kind of our next target, is we need to get those right-of-way plans approved. Yes, Eric?
So, my question to you, Kent, is just because I'm not familiar with it, I know ITD kind of has jurisdiction over Yellowstone. Why exactly does ITD have to approve 17th Rollandet?
Because of the federal
We're
funds.
taking them
Okay.
out.
Yeah, ITD is the steward of the federal funds, federal transportation funds
Gotcha.
in Idaho, yeah.
Okay.
And really this will happen through LTAC, the Local Highway Technical Assistance Council.
Okay.
They're the ones who are filling that role for ITD, although ITD headquarters is still involved. But really, LTAC is the one that is kind of shepherding the project through the process.
Okay, makes sense, thanks.
Yeah, so once we get the right-of-way plans approved, then we can go into the right-of-way negotiations. Those property owners that we need to purchase property from, we can, approach them with the offers. We've already gone out and had, meetings with property owners that we need to purchase property from, not beginning any negotiations. We have had no discussion about that, but just making sure they're aware of what we're doing. So that we don't just show up with an offer that we want to buy this property and you've never even heard of us, right? So we did do those in advance of this meeting, but yeah, we'll go into the right-of-way negotiation process. As that process comes to a conclusion, then we can completely finalize our plans and specifications, addressing anything that may have come out of right-of-way negotiations. And then it's turned over to ITD to put in their queue of projects to be bid. Our hope is that it'll be bid sometime this fall or winter, so that construction can begin next year. This does have fiscal year 2022 money in the federal program for the construction. So, that fiscal year actually begins October 1 this year, runs through September next year. So we would anticipate this construction happening sometime next summer. Unfortunately, it's not like our city projects where we can have more control over that timing. We're kind of at the mercy of the state on getting the project through the bidding process, and then getting contracts executed with the successful contractor. So we can't say for sure when that'll be, but we anticipate it sometime next construction season.
Is this a matching fund project?
Yes,
City has the
yes,
participation?
we do have the matching funds that we pay.
Are you gonna form an LID and tax the owners of the property?
No,
Good.
no,
I
this
have
is
to ask. I have to
this
ask.
is, that's a good question. No, this is a project that's of general benefit to the community, anyone who travels through there, and, with our roadway funds, we pay that, the 7.34%, and the federal funds pay the 92.66%. So, so that's kind of what I have as far as presentation. We've already talked a lot of questions, but are there any wrap-up questions?
So I just wanted to ask, based on this gentleman's suggestion about timing and everything, not just night times, weekend work, but also, what is the lowest traffic flow time of the year? Can we get it started at a time when there aren't that many cars jamming down 17th Street?
Well, I haven't found a time yet where traffic volume
We'll look for
drops
one.
on 17th Street. We certainly have a couple of times where there's more traffic than others, right? Around the 4th of July, around Christmas time, with all the shopping taking place. But no, throughout most of the year, our traffic is fairly consistent. It fluctuates, but not by a wide margin. It's pretty busy all year.
I can verify it's really light on Sunday evenings.
Sunday evening?
Yeah.
Okay. So next time I need to drive down, make sure it's Sunday evening.
Sunday evening,
Thanks
even after 9 o'clock.
I appreciate the tip. My problem is I don't have a reason to go down there.
So one of the considerations is there is a seasonality to some of these businesses. Now, I don't know about the sandwich business, but I know a little bit about the car business. I'm not in it, I'm a landlord, but I understand the car business. And January, February, March are kind of quiet. As soon as tax money comes, it picks up.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was suggesting if we could do this in February, March, and get it finished up by the 15th of April.
Yeah,
Then we can pay our taxes.
There you go.
I just don't think we're going to get through what ITD needs to do with the bidding process
Press it.
and getting out
Press
into
it.
construction by then.
I
Besides, it's hard to
understand.
build this when we're plowing the snow on that road.
I understand.
But anything else? Yes,
I have more of a comment. and
Okay.
it's- My family owned both Dan's Collision and the Sandwich Tree, and we went through all this during the 1972, whatever it was, they widened the subway.
mhm.
Right now, with what's taking place down on Fifth or First or Park or whatever it is, it goes way down, and the load that's gonna be starting to come onto Park Road, I appreciate the business discussions that are here, but I think we got a Band-Aid situation going on here, because at a certain point in time, with what we see happening on Rollandet, that we watch almost on a daily basis, that corner is gonna start loading up more and more with left-hand turns on Rollandet coming off 17th Street on Rollandet. And that's gonna get worse and worse. And that's the reason I'm saying that staging is really an issue. And when you start to just do a quick little S deal or a little shift,
Yeah,
I think we have it's a Band-Aid. That's all I'm saying. That's all my comment is. I think that there's a reality that's taking place there that at a certain point, especially in the last 9 months to a year with the traffic levels that are here, it's,
Like Riverland and all that turnover.
I think the flow of traffic, Curtis is gonna be a big enough problem. It's gonna just kind of extend directly back. We're just kind of moving it down a half a block.
Yeah,
So,
for those of us that live.
I'm not trying,
off
I
of
appreciate
Curtis,
the
that's an
businesses and I appreciate all that. Like I said, we lost a lot of building there. That's what the big retaining wall is all about there on Dan's property now.
yeah.
So, is it easier just to take care of it straight and not reconstruct and take the shifting and doing all the concrete work and just close it off to left-hand turns and make everything go down to Curtis and try to solve it on Curtis, where you got a little more room that you do have a parking lot there, you do have a I'm just making
Yeah.
comments. I
No,
just think that
yeah.
when you know what's coming down Park Road here in the future, and a lot of, I mean, there is gonna be a heavy pressure on that corner. And something's gotta be done with Rollandet anyway, at least down to the 21st Street.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So trying to keep anything coming back the other direction off of 17th on Rollandet, I think is a longer plus for the community,
Okay,
for that problem.
excellent comment, appreciate that.
And the simple fact is, I mean, this small town isn't small anymore. It's growing, and
Yeah.
it's gonna grow at an exponential rate.
We don't need that.
Yeah.
We, is it worthwhile to spend a little bit here when we need to actually plan for 40 or 50 years down the road?
And that's an excellent point. The issue we're dealing with is the plans for 40 or 50 years down the road are gonna take a long time for us to get there. And we need some improvements now to help us in the shorter term.
It's a
And we
safety
think this
issue
is
because the
Yeah.
wreck count is more than 1 a week.
Well, it's equal, Rollandet and Curtis, in my opinion, I mean, you probably have the statistics, I've been in a wreck there, but it's a Band-Aid, like you said.
Yeah. And I appreciate that, and, you know, we're trying to do what we can now with the funding that's available to us, but, yeah, this isn't the end of it. We know there's other things that are gonna need to be done. That may even have some influence on changing something we're doing here at some point in the future, right? But I think this is a safety, improvement that's well worth doing. We'll get the mileage out of it that we can, and, then look at, what the future brings as we continue to do more planning. So appreciate your attention. I did put up here an email address. This is a good email address. If you think of something later that you want to tell us that maybe you didn't think to tell us here. So it's IFENG, Idaho Falls Engineering, IFENG @idahofalls.gov. This is a really good email to send to because not only does it land in my inbox, but it lands in the inbox of the two gals that sit up front in our office who are better at keeping track of some of that stuff than some of us, right? So an email sent to that address lands in multiple email boxes on our side, and we can make sure that gets addressed. So if you do think of something, please feel free. Eric, do you have a comment?
Isn't it Idaho Falls, Idaho.gov?
It used to be.
Oh.
It just
The website still
recently
is,
changed.
but okay, gotcha.
Idaho Falls, Idaho.gov still works, but we recently got the new domain of IdahoFalls.gov,
Okay.
which I'm grateful for. So anyway.